Okay, here we are, and we will backtrack a bit. Here it is, Wednesday, the 28th. We're talking about United We Stand. This is going to be a very big thing. There's some enormous downloads that have happened the last few days, few weeks, I guess. But I wanted to sort of introduce and bring Eric into the fold, because Eric and I have been doing some pretty big work in this next chapter, and we've allowed him to take on the moniker of amanuensis. And amanuensis is really, I think it's Sanskrit for scribe, which means he just takes notes. But the reality of it is he doesn't just take notes. He's an extraordinarily technically competent embrace of this, and we've had some pretty big moments, and we will continue to, as we're playing in this arena. And we've got 11 of us here, 12 of us here, which is a really a lovely thing. Okay, Sherry, it's lovely to see you. I suspect Safrina is on her way, but we'll see. Okay, we have a United We Stand gig here tonight. Now, Kathy, welcome. We have something that is in the throes of going on and taking off, that is of profound import. Okay, we're going through a global healing crisis at this instant in time. Okay, so what's the shit hit the fan phrase, right? Why are you not up front, young lady? I know. Well, there you go. Come on, move up. Okay. And so we've got some big stuff to talk about, and certainly it behooves us all to engage in this chapter. Okay, as Saint Germain said to us many years ago, you are the hands and feet of the hierarchy, and if you do take on the yoke, if you will, of being a light bearer, there are things that you need to do to bring to light the happenings of the time, right? And so we're going to start to play in this arena diligently. I love the haircut, by the way. It's absolutely wonderful. Okay, let us do a share. Okay, and there we go. Can you see that, Sherry? Kathy, you can see it okay as well? The astronomers years ago looked at the solar system and went, this is so weird. What we see in the physical shouldn't be happening. What we see in the physical, everything should be moving inwards, but it isn't. Everything is moving outwards. Everything is expanding. Okay. And DB says one of the things that happened in this early time was that the astronomers and the quantum physicists, they only paid attention to one of the 7 bodies in the solar system. They only paid attention to the physical body. Now, every single body, all of yours, how many bodies do you have, Trevor? Duh.
3.
Duh. Yeah, that's exactly. 3 more than 1, okay. But one of the things that happens is that when you start to look with a different understanding and a different embrace of what we're at, you start to recognize how people can get things wrong. How many holes do you have in your head, Lizzie? You count them.
Lots of them.
How many?
2,000.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not pores, holes in your head.
Oh, okay.
7, yeah. Okay. Alan, how many notes in the scale?
7.
Exactly. How many days of the week? How many sacred planets?
7.
Exactly. Like, we live in a septenary nature. Okay. Now, one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is unity in an entirely different embrace. Unity in an entirely different embrace. Utopia. Who was it that wrote Utopia, Neil? Francis Bacon.
Whatever. You just
Who
said
was it?
Francis
Who was it?
Bacon.
Oh, Sir Francis Bacon. You are so clever. Yes. He wrote a book called Utopia. Now, Sir Francis Bacon. Who was Sir Francis Bacon?
Saint Germain.
Saint Germain. It's exactly right. One of the things I want you to keep in mind tonight is the macro and the micro. Okay. I want you to keep in mind that there is something going on right now that is big, and you're a part of it. And you're a part of it in what seems like a little space, but is in reality not a little space, okay?
It's a big club and we're part of it.
It's a big club. Yeah, it's exactly right. And you're part of it, right?
That's refreshing.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. Okay, so we're going to start the night off with chains and bondage and a new dawn. And what's the question?
What is the most powerful weapon?
So what is it?
Love.
Fear.
Love is a great answer. No question. No question. Yeah? What else?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. What else?
Well, it's fairly standard. Knowledge.
Knowledge. Okay.
The
True
ego.
knowing.
The ego. Okay. What else?
Thought.
Thought. Okay. Great. Elaine? Discernment. Okay.
Unity.
Unity. Who's that? Lizzie? Yeah. Unity. Okay.
Surrender.
Ooh, surrender. You guys are way in front of this question. Okay. Keep going. What else? Anna? God. Okay. Weapon. Okay. Fair enough.
Ideas.
Ideas. Okay.
Knowledge of self.
Knowledge of self. Okay.
Intention. Faith.
Intention, faith, will. Okay.
Divine will.
Divine will. What else?
Personal will aligned with.
Forgiveness. Okay.
And when you say weapon, like,
Yeah.
what are we
Ah.
weaponing towards?
Okay. No. That's good. That's good. That's a great question. And that's, again, very insightful. Now, one of the things that you've heard tonight by evidence of where you're at is, in fact, declarative of where you're at. Every one of these is a statement about something of where we're going. Okay? What is the most powerful weapon? Now let's chat. This is in part from some of the work that James Corbett did, but it certainly is in part of what's happened with the hierarchy over time. Okay?
Truth.
So with a gun, you can kill a man.
Truth.
Truth is a good one, absolutely. With a gun, you can kill a man. With a bomb, you can kill a family. With a nuke, you can take out a city. But with a story, you can control the world. Okay? There is a war today, not of guns and bombs, but of narratives. I have seated in this space oftentimes who makes the official narrative official. Indeed, right? So a war requires tanks in the streets. This war of stories doesn't require tanks in the streets. It doesn't require armed soldiers, okay? It needs only a story. Told often enough, told convincingly enough, and told by the trusted voices that have been placed above. How dare you question me? Shush. Don't you dare. Don't you dare think for yourself.
All of that during COVID.
Billions and billions of people were locked down during COVID, right? And not just one, I'm sure many of you, but livelihoods were threatened as a result of us not buying into the narrative, right?
Or buying into the narrative.
Or buying into the narrative, yes, exactly. So people don't need to be forced into submission if they can be convinced that submission is the right thing to do. Right? Now, this literally, it's coming. Yes, I know it's coming in. I had I had a very prophetic dream as a very young man. And I do believe at this instant in time, it happened in the First World War. Okay. And in the First World War, I was doing what I could to engage in an extrication of people from an event. And it turned out that my elimination or my departure at that point in time happened because of a story that I'd been told, that I'd been given in this event. And I remember I didn't know what was up. And consequently, after I left, I figured out what was up. It was very, very eventful. So you've got COVID. You've got everybody locking your doors. You've got, don't you dare, you're going to kill grandma. You've got that whole thing going on right now. So if that story can imprison you, is there another story that can set you free?
What they did was they weaponized person against person. And they're making us feel like we're parasites to a certain degree because now they're using the environmental slant.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
it's
they've
like,
used that for 40 years.
Well, there's no question. There's no question that they have. And so one of the things that we're going to play with tonight, right? We're going to play with the art of story. But we're also going to play with something that is insidious to those light bearers who know and understand that they're connected to something of a greater order. And as you know, as one of my students was saying to me today, we're just a bunch of weirdos going on this journey. Who's felt like a weirdo your whole life, right? Like, okay. So we need a story bold enough and bright enough, unifying enough to crack the false narratives open and reveal that what's been buried, right? The story that we're going to participate in doesn't divide but heals. This is part of the sons of men are one and I am one with them, isn't it? A story that doesn't dominate but illuminates. And a story that reminds us we are free, we are divine, and we are whole. Stories are enormously important. Profoundly so, okay? Today we're going to explore the next one, okay? One of personal sovereignty, divine love, who was that? And the golden age of harmony. It is inevitable. This is here.
that's Ray too.
Love, harmony, yes, absolutely. And this is the ray that is omnipresent in our solar system, isn't it? You may have a ray 5 mind, but it's a ray 2 and 5 mind, because 2 colors everything in this. Okay. Ray 2, the ray of love, wisdom. Okay. Now there's also a thread in all of this, which we'll bring up now, called the will to good. What does that mean? The will to good.
Our intention towards right action and
Our intention towards right action. Absolutely. The will to good.
Will has more of an active nature behind it,
Yes.
so it's an action of doing good.
It could be also represented as a force. So you can imagine that like gravity pulls things as a force. So will is like a force that's being applied, like you're saying, towards like a specific point.
You're absolutely right. And the will to good is presented as the will to good for a reason. It isn't so much the will to do good, although that incorporates it and encompasses it. It is the will to good, right? Now, one of the things that's happening, and I'm kind of jumping all over the landscape right now, but one of the things that's happening is we're going through a healing crisis on the planet. And one of the things that I want you to remember and keep in mind during this time is this. As the micro, as the cell of this organism that we call Sanat Kumara, I want you to pay attention to the cell that you are. Okay? And as the part of the great organism, Sanat Kumara, I want you to recognize that the earth is a cell of a being in whom we move and live and have our being. We're all part of something going on. Okay? And just like being in the surf, Alan, we look at this wave and we go, whoa, this is a good one. And we turn from the wave, we paddle as hard as we can and get going on that surfboard. We're looking over our shoulder, here it's coming, and we're getting ready to surf the wave. Or we will drown. Now, it's okay, you want to drown, drown. You're all eternal, who cares, right? But our purpose here in this time, in this iteration, in this incarnation, is to mitigate the suffering and contribute to the emancipation of mankind. Lofty? Of course. Egoic? No. This has nothing to do with your ego. It has to do with the vessel that acts as a conduit to the soul. And this is something that's profoundly important during this time. Profoundly so, okay? So today and tonight we're going to explore this new story. Okay? It's one of personal sovereignty. Love. Golden age. We're stepping into a new era. Okay? So let's begin by understanding a little about the stakes. Anybody heard of Thomas Paine? So this is, let's put ourselves January of 1776, okay? He wrote a pamphlet, 47 pages, right? So imagine, if you will, 12 pages folded like this. 12 pages folded like this with 4 sides to each page, right? So there's 12 pages, that's 48 pages. Folded up and printed in January of 1776. Now, I don't want you to think for a moment, and those of you who've taken astrology with me and have heard about astrology and know a little about astrology, I don't want you to think for a nanosecond that the astrological predispositions of the planet at this point in time were not conducive to something going on at that time. So picture this, it's the winter, okay? The American colonies are buzzing, right? Like something's going on. A whole bunch of people have arrived. The British are trying to rule. People are exasperated and frustrated. Taxes are high. Trudeau's not there yet, but he's pissing people off, right? British soldiers are everywhere, and the folks are whispering about change. But most are too scared to even dream about breaking away. No, we've been ruled, we've been ruled, we've been ruled. Tell us what to do, okay? So Thomas Paine shows up. He's a scrappy writer. He shows up and he writes a book called Common Sense. And let me tell you, it wasn't just words on a page. It was a story that lit a revolution, right? Now, what transpired with the help of the divine, and I'll give you another story about this soon, is he wrote it in common language. Now, certainly one of the things that happens, and one of the things that we get, we get accused of using big words. But what he did at the time is he wrote this in common language. So everybody who could read it in a way. And when they read it, they went, he's got a point, right? So you've got a farmer, a blacksmith, a shopkeeper huddled in a tavern, passing around this pamphlet. And Paine's words hit them. I want to say this and it's really rude. Are you ready? Hands up, yeah? Hit them like an unwanted enema. Right? It was a purge. It was oh my God, like he's right? He doesn't talk like a stuffy politician, obviously, right? He speaks their language plain and bold. He tells them that the British king sitting across the ocean is no better than a tyrant. And he's chaining them to a system that steals their freedom. Now, what are they doing? They all want to comply. They all want, like more so, like Canadians are very, very, very compliant, as we saw in this little episode, didn't we?
Well, just recently the king was here for the throne speech.
And he dished some stuff in the throne speech that is a bit interesting at the very least. So now let's play this hand, and everybody's going around. Now, one of the things, and we will show that in the next couple of slides, but one of the things that I want you to understand is that we're at this precipice yet again, 250 years later. Okay.
Are you saying that the astrology in 1776 is similar to the astrology we're experiencing right now? In this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So he tells them that the king is a wanker and they shouldn't succumb or bow down to him, right? Why should we bow to a crown that cares nothing for us? We're just colonialists, right? We're people with the right to rule ourselves. So this little pamphlet in Philadelphia, printed in Philadelphia, back in the day, I don't know how many people lived in the States in 1776. Guess how many copies it sold? Back in the day. 100,000, which is the equivalent of 10 million today. Okay? 100,000 copies. But guess what? Trevor read it and he went, holy smokes, handed it down like, holy, like it got handed around, right? So it got read by a lot of people and it caught everybody up. And what did they do when they read this pamphlet, right? What did they do? They were hesitant, bow down, now. Did you know that a law was written in Canada that said, if as a Canadian you bump into me in a car and you get out of the car and say, I'm so sorry, that cannot be attributed to you being liable? Did you know that? They actually ruled against that. We have a lawyer here who knows that, right? So you you run into me and I get out of my car and say, I'm so sorry, which actually happened to my daughter. She was in a parkade and somebody ran into her completely recklessly and completely liable. And she got out of her car and said, I'm so sorry. But rules are, my daughter was at fault and I had to pay for everything.
What?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. So, but one of the things that has transpired in Canada is that we are so egregiously, I don't know how you can match egregiously and compliant, but we're going to tonight. We're so egregiously compliant that we are prepared to say, I'll do what you tell me, boss. Well, cut off your left arm. Okay. Forgo your future. Forgo your prosperity. There is something about this movement that reeks of re-embrace or remember your sovereignty. Okay? So it was called common sense, believe it or not. It was called common sense. It didn't just share facts. It told a tale of courage and of ordinary people standing up and going, you know what? I think this guy's got something to say that's legitimate. And that, my friends, is the power of story. Okay? That is the power of story, told with heart and truth, and it can move mountains. Let's talk about stories. What's the story of Jesus and Mary and Joseph? Stan, what's the story? Virgin mother? How do you deal with that? Dudette, you're pregnant. What's going on? Right? Right? Born in December, winter solstice.
Well,
Pardon?
probably July 28th.
Well, no, the story. I'm talking about the story, not the reality.
Yeah.
The story. But how many times has that story taken up a different form? How many Jesus, Christ, Joseph, and Mary stories are there? There's 15. How about Horus, Osiris, and Isis? Like there's all kinds of them. Those are all stories. Now the power of these stories is something that the greats have left with us always. And right now, the greats are here to participate into our emancipation. And they are here to do it in a manner that says this: stand up, take responsibility, step into it, step into your sovereign power, step into your divinity, okay? Step into it. How many stories do we have going on right now? Let's chat a little about how many stories we have going on. Lizzie, what do you think? What's a story going on right now? Anywhere?
Like in general?
Sure.
So we're in crisis. The world is in crisis right
Okay, we're in crisis. Fair enough. What else?
We're in ascension process.
We're in an ascension process. I love that story. Yeah.
Gold is a barbarous relic.
Gold is a barbarous relic. That's a lovely. Did you know that DeSantis just qualified gold and silver as legal tender in Florida?
Wow.
He did.
That is
Yeah.
killer.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a few states that have already done that.
They have. Yeah. What else?
And the other story is that Make America Healthy Again, that Americans have a chronic health crisis.
Okay.
That's a big story going
So,
on.
but what's the top story of that? The top story of that is doctors keep you healthy.
So that's being challenged.
Absolutely, and that's where that's the cracks is where the lights get in, right? The light gets in. It's an old Leonard Cohen line, right? So, what other stories do we have going on? What big pharma?
The money system falling, the dissolution.
Okay, hold on. I want to talk about the stories prior to the light getting in and destroying the stories.
Well, that's been going on for a long time.
Okay, so banks take care of your money. That's a story.
Yeah, okay, that's a story.
Okay, so but what we're talking about is all of you are instruments and catalysts of changing the story. But banks are worried about your well-being and your financial well-being. Doctors are worried about your health. Big Pharma's worried about your health. What else? Politicians care deeply about you. What else?
Tech companies are trying to make your life easier.
Tech companies are trying to make your life easier. Absolutely.
The education system is trying to make you
The education system is trying to make you what?
stupid.
No. That's the antithesis of the story, right? The education system will educate you, right?
Sorry,
Yeah.
The currency is as good as gold.
The currency is as good as gold. That's a great story. You're absolutely right.
Vaccinations too.
And oh yes, vaccinations are helpful.
Very much, yeah.
So as many of you know, my eldest is almost 50, and none of my children had any vaccinations at all. And you could imagine back then that was considered blasphemy. Okay, and why was it? Well, we knew that there was a whole bunch of unlistened to physicians who knew that vaccines were dangerous. Okay? So now we're going to talk about the next step, right? This Thomas Paine's Common Sense, this little book that actually allowed the American Revolution to happen. We're going to talk a little about the American Revolution, but we're also going to talk about this new revolution that is upon us and here. Okay? Now, why do the powers that be fear a single storyteller? Okay? So the great resetters and the New World Order agenda guys, right, recognize the power of story. They know that a compelling story can shatter their control. Now, I didn't include it in here, but I'm sure you've all seen all of the bankers and the politicians sitting at the dinner table, eating, gorging themselves, and everybody underneath them as the plebeians and the common folk. If everybody just stood up, the deal would be over, right? But we're watching it in Holland, we're watching it in Canada, we're watching it in Britain, we're watching it in America. They deploy cyber brigades to silence dissent. In Britain now, if you say it's too bad the immigrants into this country are making it an unsafe place to live. They take you away and throw you in prison. Okay, now here's the gig here, and here's how the
Or in the United States, if you disagree with the Israelis and what they're doing to the Gazans, you get deported.
yeah, exactly.
That's even more shocking.
It is a profound place of this, right? Now, one of the things that I want you to see, if you might, is the powers that be are seeing their system of control crumble. And what do you do? Now, as parents, I will chat with you parents. As parents, when your kids get to be 13, 14, 15, you do realize there is a point in time in parenting where you go, I don't know, like, you're on your own. And what we want to do is we want to imbue in them enough self-trust that they know what the right thing to do is, okay? But as Tony Soprano said to Carmela in The Sopranos decades ago, when he was talking about their daughter, Meadow, as soon as Meadow figures out that she doesn't have to listen to us, we're fucked. Like, we have no control over her, right? And one of the things that's happening right now is this very picture. It's the puppeteer, somebody's rising up and breaking the strings, and the puppeteer no longer has the capacity to do that, okay?
Other people see that the strings break, so they know that they can be broken.
They need that. You're absolutely right. And I think Eric brings up a really good point, and that is this. Have you heard of the psychological experiment where they put a test group, like they brought everybody in and they handed them all numbers. All of you odd numbers, you're prisoners. All of you even numbers. What?
The Stanford prison.
The Stanford prison group. And so what they did is they then started to play the role, and they started to get really crazy. And one of the things that happened is that the prison guards became quite, what's the word? Authoritarian and brutal, and they followed orders, right? Is this the same one with the electroshock?
No.
Okay.
That's a similar story.
It is a similar story. But here's what happens. Here's what happened, right? There's the metaphor, and this aspect of the story is, you're going to be a bad guy, and I'm going to tell you to give electric shock therapy to somebody. And it was all a ruse, but they'd punch a button, and the victim would go, ah, and it was all, ow, but they were continuing to do it, right? Now,
Is that the Milker?
maybe. But one of the things that happened in this is when somebody said, no, it gave everybody else the okay to say no. And one of the things that we watched in this whole shenanigans with the jab was how everybody became their own prison guard by wagging a finger and waving a finger and tattletaling. And you know what? You have to give due reference to the black hand or the dark sorcerers or the black magicians in thinking they played a really good hand there, like they had everybody hypnotized. Is that fair? It is fair, because you looked at it and you went, just a second, right? Like, we were locked in our homes. We were locked in our homes, and then you had to go, well, I'll just leave this here and I'll go out and get groceries.
It's like popular delusions of the madness of crowds.
You know, and now what has transpired in the last few years is we've become separate, haven't we? Prior to COVID, we used to have gatherings here, 20, 30 people, 40 people. We had the mystery school of 42, 43 people live. What's it done? It's split up the community.
Well, the narrative is still split, because if you say you know, if I were to go to school and say, oh yeah, I went to see Jordan Peterson, I'd be in the camp of, oh, you're unvaccinated, you like Trump, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So it's like, you know, all these little things follow us everywhere. Like we've become almost like they've become a cliche and we've become a cliche, and there's the they and the we. And
Absolutely,
that's
no,
right. And then
you're absolutely right. You're not hurting him, he's just being a wanker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, you're absolutely right, Erica, you're absolutely right, and I think,
Element of that where I feel like we still can't tell our truth. And like I try to, like I drop a few carrots here and there, but I work in an institution where I have to really be careful, but I kind of like to do it sometimes just to see where people's minds are at.
and I think you know, as we've said always in the Joy class and in our community, Morward Haggett. Morward Haig. Question. Ask a question.
Yeah.
Pose a question. Mm-hmm. Don't even offer an answer. But one of the things that is happening right now is that our capacity to break free of this narrative is getting stronger and stronger. Okay, it's getting stronger and stronger. You cannot comply yourself out of tyranny. Okay, you cannot comply yourself out of tyranny. Okay, why? If you're going to give me control, I'm going to take control. If you're not going to question me taking control, why would I? Right? Why would we play that hand?
Well, it's like an experiment. So, oh, look at how well they complied this time. How much farther can we push it the next time?
You know what? And that's something that, and it was Peterson who said, what they do is they just push you back enough until you go, just a second, and then they back off. And then they push you back enough, and then you go, just a second, and they back off. And pretty soon you're a mile behind, you're a mile back. Okay? Now, one of the things that's happening right now is in the rules and the laws of nature, we're going through a profoundly stressful period in order for it to initiate our next stage of development. Okay? And our next stage of development is no longer subscribing to the fear and to the fear porn and to the news and to all of that, right? To the official narrative. And one of the things that is very important to remember is this very slide, okay? So Alexander, would you read it?
The task is not so much to see what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. Edward Schrodinger.
Okay, so now let's think of that. Like, we're gonna stop and think on that. Look at it, read it, noodle on it. I want you to have some thoughts on this. Okay? Like Schrodinger, he was a quantum mechanic, a quantum physicist, right? And he talks about rethinking the nature of reality itself, okay? You imagine how unity in a group or unity in a society often comes from collective reimagining shared challenges.
Kind of another way of saying the emperor has no clothes.
It is. You're right, Neil. That's very astute. The emperor has no clothes. Does everybody knows that story, right? Who doesn't know the story? The emperor has no clothes. Okay, so long ago in a land far, far away, right, was a very egotistical wanker of a king who sought out all kinds of wonderful, good, lovely things. And the special spiffy doodle tailor came in and he said, as he walked through the door, you know, this fabric is so special that only special spiffy doodle people can actually see it and appreciate its magnificence. And he said, here it is. And all of everybody around the king said, oh my goodness gracious, I'm special, so I can see it. I can see how special it is. Oh, wow, it's just lovely, and it's soft, and it's magnificent, and it's wonderful. And the king looked at it all, and he went, yes, it is indeed magnificent. Well, I need you to make me a costume. I need you to make me a suit. I need you to make me whatever it is. And so the tailor went about, and he said, and, because this is so special, it's very expensive. And the king said, spare no expense. I want you to bring it on, he said. And so the tailor came. He went away for a week or two, and he got however many gold pieces, and he came in, and he dressed the king in this magnificent suit that only the brilliant people could actually appreciate and see. And as the king strutted out into the courtyard of the village or of the castle that he was in, a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old looked at him and said, hey, the king has no clothes on. And in fact, he was dressed in nothing.
Jeff, it's a perfect narrative to describe academia, and because that's exactly who I've seen buy into all of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're special, because they're smart, and so they understand the science, they understand the economy, they understand, right? I mean, it's
You're absolutely right.
I mean, I have a good friend who always thought herself so smart, and she's going around and getting us down to net zero.
They live in
And
Ottawa.
she's very happy about that. That's,
Yeah.
it's so hard to watch.
Well, but one of the things that
It's part of the
It's-
people looking on the king.
it absolutely
So
is.
special.
That's exactly right. So read this again,
You
Trevor.
can't see it, because that's exactly
exactly.
what they say.
Yes.
They say, and Carney has actually been noted to say this,
Yeah.
only we are smart enough, he doesn't say smart enough to make these
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah,
And that's what she would say.
that's exactly right. It's frightening.
The central bankers.
The central
And
bankers,
he's
of course.
the central banker of central bankers.
Right.
True twice.
That's the greatest critique of postmodernism by both. I've heard both Jordan Peterson and Noam Chomsky, who are like, left, right, but so
Yeah.
agreed on freedom of speech and stuff. Postmodernism, you look at like Foucault and these types, it's just an art of sounding super smart with an incredible vocabulary and saying
Absolutely nothing. You're absolutely right.
When you really push them, they have nothing to
That's
say.
exactly right. Read this again.
The task is not so much to see what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees.
Okay, so what are we seeing, and how is it that we can think about what we're seeing that will lend itself to your role and your objective and your enzymatic contribution to your catalytic conversion of this time? If in fact we proclaim that we are hands and feet of the hierarchy, what is it that we can look upon this scenario and think? Okay?
This is all being used for evolution or growth.
This is all being used for our evolution or growth. Okay, fair enough. What else? Whoops. What else?
I mean, people say that they believe in things and that they have these values of like freedom, liberty, and justice and peace, and they don't live those at all. And they like let other people coerce them into violating their own priorities and principles. And so there's so much like contradiction between like what people believe and how they act. And they're seeing all of this action take place, but they're not actually thinking about the contradiction itself. And that seems to be one of the main like components of veganism as a principle, is that people say that they love and respect animals, but you can't really actually believe that if when you go to a store, the thing that you're buying is a product of someone that did not respect that animal.
Okay, I don't disagree with that, but I'm talking about something global as opposed to, and something about the control system that's in place, okay?
Well, isn't that one of the control systems? Like our
There's
economy
another,
is predicated
story.
on it.
There's
Yeah.
another story, absolutely. And I agree in whole heart that as the world evolves, we will move towards a plant-based system. No question. But this is bigger than our consumption. It doesn't exclude that, but this is bigger than that. And it tends to be stepping outside of the official narrative. And that is definitely one of the stories. But there's a lot of stories in here, okay?
Yeah, it's just more the idea of contradiction, that people say
Absolutely.
they believe something, but then they don't actually live it. And that someone is
You're
tricking
absolutely
them
right.
to
Yeah.
propagate that contradiction. And contradiction is anti-truth. It's anti-authenticity. That like if you say who you are, but you don't act how you are, then you're not being authentic. And authenticity is the highest vibration. When you look at
Yes,
the
indeed, indeed.
Scale of vibrations,
Absolutely.
like from the Hawkins scale of consciousness,
Yes,
authenticity is at the very top.
absolutely.
Well, I think
Absolutely
the thing, the authenticity is associated with peace, which is at the top.
Yeah, no one is like you're just being you. No one can take that piece away from you.
Yeah.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So what are we going through right now? Yeah?
Well, our quest for self-sovereignty,
Our quest for self-sovereignty.
yeah, using discernment.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think for me right now, just to speak just quickly on a
Yeah.
personal note, is because I'm working in a system that I've outgrown. So I feel like part of my life is now become outdated.
well, and yeah, I mean,
It's outdated, I can't actually be authentic because I can bring my love and wisdom and compassion of my grade 2 personality
yeah,
to the table and work with the kids I work with, but I can't actually be my authentic self. Because it's such a bullshit system and people don't even, I'm like on a different planet. I don't
Okay.
even know who thinks like I do in this current school I work in.
and guess what? I mean, we're going through a healing crisis, but
Yeah.
I want you to listen to this, and this is very germane, okay? You're standing at a threshold. You're not quite who you were and not yet who you are becoming. Behind you lie the comforting scripts of identity, roles, habits, and beliefs, now stretched thin. Ahead, something wider calls. It is wordless, spacious, and unfamiliar. You pause in this place between, and within the hush, a voice rises. Be careful, stay safe, remember who you are. It's not the voice of malice so much. It is the voice of the ego, a long-time guardian doing its best to preserve what was. It has spoken this way for years, out of habit more than clarity. But something within you senses that this threshold marks a turning. Sorry. I've lost it. Okay.
It's so good.
Oh, I know. Hold on. It's coming. No, yeah.
The answer was just there.
But something within you senses that this threshold marks a turning, a portal, a soft ending before a radiant beginning. This is the sacred pause before the becoming. And in this stillness, the ego emerges, not as enemy, but as something seeking redemption. A final offering before transformation. We are preparing you for an initiation. In the liminal, okay? We explore the sacred space between the old and the new, a threshold not of doing, but of becoming. It is here, we in this stillness, that the compassionate work of transcending the ego truly begins. For when we attempt to meet the ego amid the noise of the world, we often become entangled in its defenses, as we do. But in the quiet of the in-between, where identity softens and the soul speaks, we find that space to witness the ego not as an enemy, but as a child shaped by fear. This is the invitation to go slow, to look inward with tenderness, gentleness, and to hold ourselves not with judgment, but with empathy. The path beyond the ego begins not with force, but with presence. The role of the ego, guardian turned gatekeeper. The ego is not inherently flawed. It is the first architecture of identity, built from childhood experiences, culturally, karmically, and survival strategies. It defines boundaries. It offers orientation in a world that is loud and complex. In our early years, it is not just useful, it is life-saving, seemingly. The ego forms when we are still too young to consciously make sense of the world. We absorb the energies and messages around us. We are indoctrinated. We are socialized. We are domesticated into a world in which we live in. It's deeply intelligent in that way. It gives us something to hold on to when the world feels unpredictable. Do you guys remember Gabor Mate? So he talks about the ego is not who we are, the ego is who we think we are. A construct, a defense, a scaffolding to survive in a world that may not have offered safety. We are in between worlds right now, you guys. We are absolutely in between worlds. And over time, that scaffolding hardens, and what once protected begins to confine. The ego begins to filter out anything that threatens its architecture. Who's been witness to that, eh? It clings to titles, opinions, traumas, and familiar stories, not because they nourish us, but because they maintain the illusion of control. It becomes rigid in its loyalty. It fears being wrong, not because it's arrogant so much, but because wrongness might feel like annihilation. And we are all in this place where egoically, our egos, on this journey that you have participated in, your ego's very existence is being threatened. And as I've said many times for a long time, your ego would rather see you die than go to where we are bringing you. We are bringing you into the realm of ascension. We are bringing you into the realm of initiation.
So is that the new narrative? The assumption that we're going into, we're transforming into another world is based on the assumption that that's good. Is that a narrative? Another story?
It certainly is a vital part of the golden thread of truth behind all ancient teachings. And that is, we are an evolutionary being. And as Rumi said, right, I awoke as a mineral and I died as a mineral and awoke as a plant. I died as a plant and awoke as an animal. I died as an animal and woke as a human. I died as a human and woke as a god. I mean, there's something beyond that. So yes. And so one of the narratives that the divine, the sages have given us is there are things to be done by you, done better by you. And your next iterative state is into a place that you have no capacity to truly appreciate. The Christ consciousness.
You know, I believe all that, I catch all that, but in speaking with others,
Yes?
they just call it conspiracy theory. And so we each as human beings then have to make our judgment of what we are going to regard as truth. How do you convince others?
So here's the demarcate, the line in the sand, and it's this. There is an essence within each and every one of us that resonates with what has been referred to as our intuition, or our knowingness, or our understanding. And there's also this part of what we've seen, which is a ray 6 affectation, which is what is a ray 6 affectation?
Seems like a commitment to a type of belief that like devotion is like
But
wholeheartedness.
Devotion is this way. What's the vice of Ray 6? It's fanaticism. Sorry, this is fanaticism. And now one of the things that's happening right now is we're breaking through and free of a belief system that no longer serves us. We're transcending it. But there are a whole bunch of other people who are profoundly invested in it. And what's the phrase in the Bible? Cast ye not pearls before swine. And remember, one of the things that often comes to light is this capacity to say, everything in life suffers when our view of it is too small and too personal. And so one of the things that happens in this gig, and in fact, it's in JC Superstar, when Jesus is singing, there will be poor always. You can't save everybody, right? And one of the things that happens in the iterative approach to our evolution is you had to live a lifetime of that, and now you lived that lifetime, so now you're ready. Now you're ready to be receptive to that dialogue, that conversation. But if you're not there yet, you're not there yet. And so consequently, it isn't our place so much to save people. It is our place to turn on the lights so brightly that they look upon the light bearers in a manner that begets a question. What do you know that I don't know? Why are you asking me these questions that make me question things? How is it that you kind of get it and I don't? What am I missing? All of a sudden these things happen. Now, it may be for some, it may not be for others. And one of the things that's happening right now, and I've said this for decades, and there is this time, and this was one of the profound messages in the pyramids, from the pyramids, and it was this, and it's intrinsic in our ego, or in our logo right here. There's our logo. It's this. Now, the message from the pyramid in our logo was, this time, during this solar flash, you can do this and look up and receive from the divine this profound flash of Christ consciousness, of expansive awareness. Or you can hide your head in the sand. That's your free will. You get to do whatever you want. What you can't hide from is the consequences of your hiding your head in the sand. You're going to miss it. And it's another 26,000 years before this opportunity comes around again. Now, have you spent 26,000 years? Most of you have spent way more than 26,000 years to do this. We now have this window opening. Now, there is a part in all of us, and Elaine speaks diligently because she knows this. There's a part as an educator where you want to empathically and frivolously, you want to bitch slap these people into alignment to tell them that, for God's sake, right? It's like the scene in Airplane where they're, in Airplane where they're shaking the woman in the seat and everybody lines up behind her and slaps her about. Don't stop freaking out, right? And there's a part of us that wants to bitch slap people into compliance. However, in the very same breath, we also want to be ever mindful, intuitively, not to waste our time. Because one of the challenges that happens in this time is that the naysayers, or those who have been unfortunately bamboozled into the place of defending the official narrative, identify with something that they know is not real, but they are desperate to cling to because it's their only sense of identity. And this is the ideologues, the ideologies of a lot of people who are prevented really from discovering their own sovereignty because they want to identify with an ideology.
I don't know who said this, but the phrase is, it's easier to convince somebody of something than to convince them that they've been fooled.
Mark Twain, yeah, exactly. It's easier to fool somebody than to convince them they've been fooled, than to disclose to them that they've been fooled. because everybody has a very vested and strong interest in being right, don't they? And when you become less attached to being right, you start to see the evolutionary process of it's all in due course. It's all in due course. Soon enough, they will find out, right?
And that right there is the correspondence law. Because what you are seeing in them, their rigidity, is a reflection of you wanting your stance to be seen and heard and understood, and then you're visiting your conflicts with it all. So then, you know, maybe some of your rigidity, right?
So I would suggest in a psychological aspect, Vera, that would be more that you are seeing in others the mirror of yourself. It's not the law of correspondence. The law of correspondence is as above, so below, and as below, so above, right?
Sorry, yes. And then, yes, I was thinking
Right.
about another thing, but yes, that's exactly.
Okay, let me finish with this, right? Where the thread we had was the ego sees contradiction not as an invitation to evolve, but as a threat to its very existence. And then Alan Watts steps in and goes, the ego is like a radar on a ship, a useful tool, but we confuse it for the whole ship. This confusion becomes a cage, but for every cage there is a key. The ego, as we've said often, is not to be destroyed, it is to be evolved and transcended. It is to be, what's the phrase we use? Loved into submission. And that's where we recognize that as we drive a vehicle, the vehicle isn't who we are, but it gets us to where we need to go. Okay? And as we prepare you for the third initiation, we prepare you to a place where you become soul infused. So you speak of and you see as and you participate as a soul infused personality. You've tempered or you've sublimated the soul, you've sublimated the personality to the dictates of the soul, okay? The ego is not to be destroyed, it's to be evolved and transcended, reassigned, integrated. What was once a controlling lens can become a clarified companion. The soul's first whisper. Awakening does not arrive in fanfare. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly, a crack in certainty, a discomfort from old patterns. Hey, have you looked at it this way? You know, that may not look like an apple. Might be a pear, might be a strawberry, might be a grape covered in pesticides. This is the soul speaking. It speaks not in argument, but in sensation, in synchronicities, in knowing that defies logic. When the ego speaks in fear and control, the soul moves in stillness and alignment. You begin to ask, if I'm not my job, my trauma, or my beliefs, then who am I? Oof, that's a big one. This slide talks about the healing crisis that we are participating in right now and extricating ourselves from. Thank you so much. We lose fear, division, and control. Think of the society as a body and the narratives as its immune system. Right now, we are infected by toxic stories, fears of plague, scarcity, us versus them. The population needs to be told a compelling story about why the rulers are ruling and why it's wrong to resist the rule. Our job is to identify these pathogens, just like the narrative, the COVID narrative, right? That locked us in fear and activated our collective immunity. You know, certainly Jordan Peterson brings this forward, but a lot of people have brought it forward. And it's that, like, you had to look around to make sure that you acting in your own sovereign way wasn't tattletaled on by somebody. There was a story, and I don't know where this story comes from, but there was a story about a prisoner of war camp in one camp. I don't care who it was. Maybe German, maybe American, maybe British, maybe Japanese, maybe somewhere. But the prison guards had infiltrated all the prisoners, and they'd made all the prisoners tattletales. And the CO of the prisoners came in and he said, "This must stop." and he led a story. And the story to the prisoners were, these guys are not your friends. Your current prisoners in arms are not your enemies. And he changed the entire energy of the prison camp. And in a very short period of time, all of the prison guards became terrified of the prisoners. And the prisoners ruled the prison until the end of the war. Now, let us beckon back. I mean, we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence here in a minute, because this is something that Saint Germain presented, so I'm not going to deny it. We're going through a healing crisis. We're going through a healing crisis right now to align with and play with a new dialogue, a new narrative. And the new dialogue and the new narrative is, you are a sovereign being. You are not an ideologue. There are things to be done by you. We know that, right? Through critical thinking, spiritual awakening, and community. We purge division with unity. We purge fear with love. We purge control with sovereignty. Just as the body heals to restore balance, our next story fosters holistic solutions. Clean food, natural health, and divine alignment. And it's coming. It's coming. Like, there's no question that it's starting to come. Can't come fast enough. And there's all kinds of disclosure going on right now that is lovely in its direction. Okay? So I want to chat a little about Saint Germain and his influence over the years in what's going on in the world. And we're going to harken back to the summer of 1776 in Philadelphia, where everybody was full of tumult, everybody was full of a whole bunch of stuff. And the delegates for the Continental Congress were gathering to chat about the Declaration of Independence. And they stood in this place knowing that full well, had the Brits discovered what they were doing, they would all be hung or executed in some fashion. So the air was thick and cut with a knife, no doubt, with the weight of their decision. So treason, obviously, against the British crown was omnipresent. So among the faces there, Jefferson, Adams, and Franklin, a figure stood in the shadows, and his presence was both commanding and ethereal. Saint Germain, this mysterious adept whose wisdom had shaped courts and secret societies across Europe, known to the initiated as a master, as an ascended master, a keeper of ancient truths. He'd crossed the Atlantic to guide the birth of a nation destined to embody the ideals of liberty and universal brotherhood. Saint Germain, cloaked in a simple and elegant robe, eyes alight with a fire of his divine purpose, observed the hesitancy among these delegates. The Declaration, which was penned by Jefferson and infused with the philosophical clarity of Franklin's Masonic insights, was more than a political document. It was a beacon, a covenant to awaken humanity's latent potential for self-governance and spiritual freedom. Theosophical lore held that Saint Germain was an emissary of the Great White Brotherhood and had long worked to plant the seeds of a new Atlantis, a vision inspired by Sir Francis Bacon's dream of a society rooted in wisdom, justice, and enlightenment. And in fact, Sir Francis Bacon was one of Saint Germain's previous iterations. America, he believed, was to be the crucible for this grand experiment. Now, as fear rampant in the room, delegates murmuring and muttering of reprisals and the gallows, Saint Germain stepped forward, his presence silencing the murmurs like a breeze still in the restless sea. His voice, resonant with clarity of truth and authority of divine inspiration, filled the chamber. Gentlemen of destiny, he began, its words echoing the theosophical principle of universal unity, heart, head, and hand.
You stand not merely as men of this age, but as architects of a divine plan. The Creator has woven into the soul of humanity a spark of liberty, a sacred fire that no crown may extinguish. This declaration is no mere parchment. It's a covenant with the eternal, a vow to raise a nation where every soul may seek truth, justice, and the divine within. Now he paused. He gazed over the assembly, each man feeling in their own way as though he was addressing them personally. Fear not the chains of tyranny, he continued, his words infused with the theosophical call to transcend material limitations. For the chains of the body are but illusions before the might of the spirit. You are called to forge a land where the ancient wisdom may flourish, where the brotherhood of man unites under the banner of freedom. Sign this document not for yourselves alone, but for the unborn generations who will look at this moment as the dawn of a new era. The eyes of the divine hierarchy are upon you. Act, and let the light of liberty shine. The delegates, stirred by this voice that seemed to speak from the heart of eternity, felt their fears dissolve. Benjamin Franklin, a fellow seeker of esoteric truth and a friend of the master, nodded solemnly, recognizing the weight of Saint Germain's presence. John Adams, ever pragmatic, felt an inexplicable surge of resolve. Thomas Jefferson, whose words on the parchment echoed the universal principles Saint Germain championed, sensed a divine hand guiding the moment. As the quill passed from hand to hand, the act of signing became a sacred rite. Each signature a pledge to the vision of a nation founded on the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, Saint Germain's influence, as always, of the great ascended masters, extends beyond just this speech. In the quiet hours before the signing, he had met with Franklin and Washington, sharing designs for the American flag. A symbol of stars symbolizing unity, a circle of stars symbolizing unity, and the five-pointed star as a nod to the pentad of divine harmony. He spoke of America as a great experiment, a land where the ancient mysteries could be reborn in a new form, free from the dogmas of old Europe. His presence, his alchemical knowledge inspired whispered tales among the delegates, who saw him as a sage whose wisdom transcended mortal bounds. The Declaration of Independence, which was signed on August 2nd, was more than a break from colonial rule. It was a metaphysical act, a declaration of humanity's right to self-determination under divine law.
This is important.
Saint Germain, the eternal wanderer, vanished as silently as he had appeared, leaving no trace but the indelible mark of his words. In the teachings that we propagate, he is said to have continued his work and continues guiding humanity through unseen channels. His presence felt in every step towards freedom and enlightenment. The profound influence of the Declaration rippled outward, igniting revolutions and inspiring movements for liberty across the globe. It was a document that dared to proclaim that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, a radical idea rooted in the spiritual truth that all souls are equal before the divine. Saint Germain's hand, though invisible to history's pen, was felt in the courage it instilled, with the vision it inspired, and the destiny it set in motion. America, and even North America, is to be an open house for all creeds and races, a nation where the ancient wisdom can flourish under the banner of freedom. A vision the great master, the master of compassion, had championed in that fateful moment.
It's pretty big, eh? Now, to think that the hierarchy, the masters, the ascended masters that we've been studying and we make reference to and we interact with, to think that they're not involved in this next stage is a bit naive. Yeah? And I think one of the things that's really important to remember is we're kind of, what's the phrase, all for one and one for all, and we're all in this together, and this shit show ain't no fun anymore. We got to write a country song about that, right? There's something very magic about this, and there's also something very divinely integrative. Don't for a second think that it doesn't have God's fingerprints all over it, for want of a better cliche. Huh? There is something about this, something very, very magic. And it's not something to trifle with, but it's also something to see. It's very important to be able to see this through eyes unclouded by longing, but also through eyes uncompromised by programming, right? The mirror at the threshold. As you stand in this stillness, the ego protests. It throws static, fear, resistance. It clings harder. The nervous system tightens. But this is not the time to flee. It's the time to meet the mask. When you see it's not a villain, it's a child. What you see is not a villain, it's a child. It is the vehicle through which your soul has chosen to express itself. You indeed are the ruler of this vessel. This vessel is not your ruler. The ego was born where love felt conditional, its defenses shaped by absence, abandonment, or rejection. It armored your heart when you were too young to understand what was happening. Now at the edge of emergence, the ego whispers, what happens to me if you go on without me? Whew. What happens to me? This is not a moment of erasure. It's a moment of transformation. To meet the ego with compassion is to thaw that was frozen in survival. It's to offer safety, not scorn. When you see the sacred parts of you with gentleness, they relax. The war inside begins to end. You embrace, you allow, you allow, you allow, you receive. This is not just a mental realization. It's an energetic shift. You begin to understand the internal polarities, the conflict between conversation. You no longer exile parts of yourself to maintain the illusion of purity. You become wide enough to hold contradiction. You begin to say, I can be both wise and wounded. I can be both sovereign and scared. I can be both in progress and enough all at once. That's completely contrary to how we dance, isn't it? We're afraid of allowing our humanity to be held and acknowledged. We often hear about ego death, but awakening is not so much a battle to be won, it's a gentle reassignment of roles. What did I just say?
Awakening is not so much a battle to be won, but a gentle reassigning of roles.
And our aspect and our aspiration is to love our
Ego into submission.
into submission. That's a big one, isn't it?
That's what Jesus talks about in the Bible with Eva being the bride.
Exactly. Exactly. The ego, once a gatekeeper, becomes a guide. It becomes a steward of the soul, right? What was separation is now becoming sovereignty. And as this shift settles, you no longer reach for validation as often. You feel less urgency to defend. You start to trust life more. The unknown, once terrifying, becomes intriguing. This is where the transformation becomes sustainable. Now, the ego is not only personal, it's systemic. You have a whole bunch of collection of egos going on and playing, okay?
Jeff, who wrote that? Okay.
Well, will you put that, post that? or
Yeah.
send that?
It's like 8 pages long. I'm just pulling from it as it plays, right? Look at this. What does this picture tell you?
Harmony, unity.
Harmony, who? Sorry? Harmony, unity, whole bunch of hearts here, right?
The heart field, the torus.
The heart field, the toroidal field.
The
Exactly.
New Earth.
The new earth. Okay, absolutely. The new earth, right? We can be freed by a narrative that helps us to break out of our mental prison. One story with a compelling tale can reframe our collective reality in an instant. Okay?
It looks like an eye as well.
It does look like an eye as well. Okay? And it's the heart is beaming, isn't it? And it sounds corny, but Trevor will tell us, all you need is, yeah, exactly, right? All you need is love. And I'm not sure who this was. It may have been someone in the healing clinic of late, but when you pull up the lyrics to that song, do you guys know the lyrics to that song? There's nothing you can say that can't be sung. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. There's nothing, it just goes on and says, right? But you can learn how to play the game. All you need is love. Right? And one of the things that happens in our desperation and in our comparative mind is ego is desperate to be validated. It's desperate to be right. We're oftentimes so vested in being right, we lose sight of what we just talked about, is being in process and perfectly okay, remembering the divine in us, okay? This is a story of united we stand and divided we fall. Now, whether all of us, as this group, as the Joy family, there's a union, but also united within ourselves. Because oftentimes we play judge, jury, and executioner, don't we? And I'll tell you, without a word of a lie, most of you are your worst own critics, aren't you? Right? So this is our next story. Personal sovereignty, where each of us claims our divine right to create our own destiny, free from control. Now, when you all know that you are part of a system that thrives on unity and thrives on health and prosperity and all of that stuff, you recognize that your well-being is his and his well-being is yours, right? And that's a weird place to be. Because, boy, we've been conditioned otherwise, haven't we? Dog eat to dog. Or as Claire would say on, what's that show called? Modern World? Not Claire. Gloria would say, it's a doggy world, right? And it isn't. But it's been conditioned that way. And the conditioning is falling apart. The conditioning is falling apart. Holistic harmony. Okay? This story isn't just a dream, it's a blueprint for this next golden age that actually everybody is going to get there in due course, but you as light bearers are going to be carrying the torches that light the way. Okay? Rainbow Bridge. Not all of you are familiar with the Rainbow Bridge, but the Rainbow Bridge is actually the building of a luminous highway of light between the two aspects of yourself, your personality and your soul. Through focused intention, visualization, and alignment, you construct this bridge. We call this the Antakarana, or the Rainbow Bridge. This was given to us by the hierarchy. And we will be having Rainbow Bridge classes. We can't help but, okay? This is what you look like after you start to do the work. Aligned. The soul star active in you. Many of you have goop and gunk. Those are terribly Sanskrit terms, aren't they, Alan? Goop and gunk, yes. They come to us from ancient India way back in the days, right?
I call it Gook and Gak.
Gook and Gak, there you go.
Or draw.
Or drama, dross, maya, glamour, illusion, yes, indeed. So this practice is highly recommended because what it does is it accelerates your evolution. It brings clarity, purpose, and healing by harmonizing the conflicting parts of your nature. And you don't have to know about them. You don't have to relive them. One of the fallacies of conventional, outdated, misaligned psychology is to think, well, you know, Trevor and I have a long past, and in one of the last lifetimes, he ran me over with a car. So Trevor, get out there on the street and I'll run you over with a car and we'll balance out that karma. That's just nonsense, right? However, oftentimes the lower mind, yeah, the lower mind sort of figures out. Now, karma is way more labyrinthine than that. Okay, it's way more labyrinthine. What happens when you transcend karma? Every act accrues to humanity, right? However, maybe you arrived in this lifetime without a whole lot of karma. But the second you arrive, you start to accrue it. And how do you play it? You play it by doing good. The will to good. Full stop. Full stop. Haha. Merkaba. There you go. Elaine? Oh, you were just scratching your neck? I thought you wanted to offer something profound. And here it was, you had an itchy neck.
The will to good, love in action to me.
Love in action, absolutely. Trevor, absolutely. The planting of the seed, what's going on right now? We are planting an entirely new forest, if you will, a planting of a new seed. And what does that seed play, right? What is the story that it wishes to tell? It will appear as a revelation, right? And is this not the time of revelation? Hello? The next story follows a hero's journey, doesn't it? It's now just darkest before the dawn. And man, it's dark right now, isn't it? But what are we starting to see and hear? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I just put something up on the channel there today. It's like a week old now, but it's a hearing, the Senate. You've got Peter McCulloch, is that his name? Just the evidence being presented on the harms of the vaccine, right? Just like astounding. And this it is coming out.
Yeah.
And to watch myself, my ego,
Yeah.
want those bastards to pay, you know, and then I get to go, wait a minute, that's not love.
So Trevor, yeah.
The truth is what it is. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's the perfect line on it, but
Yeah.
there is a hierarchy. Somebody's closer, somebody's further away, and my job is just to bring truth forth with love, with discernment, assessment, evaluation, but without condemnation.
I think Trevor brings up a really important point, and it's very germane to our conversation, and it's this. This next battle, if you will, isn't so much a battle as it is a transcendence of vibration to move beyond the battle. And one of the things that I think it's very important for us to embrace and remember is that we have the lords of karma. And there's something about, as we said earlier, there's something about us wanting to bitch slap everybody into compliance. And there's something about justice being done, and it will happen. But the lords of karma don't miss a thing. And as evidence in one little minuscule sliver of reality, we had a guy named O.J. Simpson who seemingly created a nasty crime. And who seemingly the courts of the laws of justice and the societal justice sort of, right, passed it off. But what happened? In all due course, in this lifetime, karma happened, okay? Now, one of the things that
What
happens,
did happen? I forget,
he was acquitted of the murder, then he was sued by the family of the murdered woman, and they won. They bankrupted him, and then, you know, he declared bankruptcy. And then he did something weird, like stole something from somebody in
yeah,
Vegas,
yeah.
and then he got sentenced to prison. Like he got sent to prison. But one of the things that is always a real, it's a comfort in a way, because as you said, like condemnation doesn't work because it compromises your vibration.
And he was also racked
Well-
by arthritis.
and it's just,
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
hands were
and
all
it's assuming
seized up.
that I know, that I have the exact line on the truth again, and there's only one, you know, God, what.
Well, but
Bible.
the default, and you're absolutely right, Trevor. You're going down exactly the right alley there. Yeah.
What I usually say, one of my pitches, to bring truth forth with love, to serve justice. And it's not
Yeah.
to serve justice like, here's somebody's head on a silver platter, but
Yeah.
to serve this universal principle of justice.
Yeah.
I have no part in the justice part.
Exactly.
I just bring the truth forth with love, and then justice will unfold naturally if we were all
Exactly.
to do that.
And I think it's super important to remember that the Lords of Karma don't miss a thing. You don't have to be the jury, the judge, the jury, and the executioner. You have to remember that the Lords of Karma don't miss a thing. Now, we've heard that, yeah?
Helps the ego.
I find that
That feeling gives you energy.
there's a feeling of, who am I to judge, because I actually don't have all the facts anyway.
Yeah.
So then it's easier just to say, well, it looks this way, but it's
Right.
this way, maybe not, so
Yeah.
let somebody else.
No, that's exactly right.
Still fit.
That's exactly right. And Kenneth and JFK said something to the effect of that, didn't he?
In his secret society speech?
No,
Talking about,
no.
Okay. Well, Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time, like you gotta stumble forth like a fool and say your stupid things so that you learn and bring your truth, whatever it is.
Exactly.
The
But
fool was the precursor to the king.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, and the fool is an actual pathway to the divine, right? Too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. That was attributed to JFK. And I think one of the things that's happening right now is people are being asked to think about what's going on, right?
Whenever I think about this subject, a portion of the hymn comes to mind, and it's that we are all going to dance on the grave of injustice.
Ah,
So when I have this thought, then I just picture, a lighthearted group of people dancing around on the grave of injustice. It's just
well, and you know, the next slide, I mean, I want to show you this next slide because it's, I want you to look at this. I want you to look at this. Imagine a world in which everyone is conscientious, caring, and responsible. Okay? Now I want you to think on this for a minute, okay? Because as you think on it, you create an energetic vibration around that thought. And in that mental body energization, you change things. Now, is there some aspect of the divine design that we are participating in? Hands up, yes. Okay. It's naive to think that all of this does not have divinity and divinity's fingerprints all over it.
We could rewrite that slide and it could say, we live in a world in which everyone is conscientious, caring, and responsible.
There you go.
Because as you're speaking about us rewriting the story, I feel like all the people I connected with that had the same value system that I did during COVID, that didn't fall for the narrative, we were rewriting a story. We were gathering, we were were talking about our vision, we were talking about how we would rewrite the story if, you know, like what is a better way of doing this and what's a better way of doing that, and sharing ideas and I have to admit, like, we haven't gathered for a while here in the Lamasery, and I'm like, what the hell's missing in my life right now? Like, oh, something is off. Oh shit, we haven't been to Joy Class in a while.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
Yeah. Because it, you know, being in this space is an energetic imprint and vibration that I need to come back to when I'm out there floundering in the strangeness of whatever's going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna do an invocation. You ready?
I am.
Okay. Well, yeah, actually, let's do the soul invocation first. Okay? Let's go. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Okay, now repeat after me. I am a Christed being.
I am a Christed being.
I am a Christed being, silver light upon the path.
I am a Christed being, silver light on the path.
I am a Christed being, source within each lighted cell.
I am a Christed being, source within each lighted cell.
I move in unity with spirit.
I move in unity with spirit.
I love in unity with all.
I love in unity with all.
I am a Christed being, loving unconditionally.
I am a Christed being, loving unconditionally.
All vibration is increased in resonance with spirit.
All vibration is increased with resonance with spirit.
Moving to the light behind the light.
Moving to the light behind the light.
Cellular consciousness is fully light.
Cellular consciousness is fully light.
I am transmutes this energy with clarity and intent.
I am transmutes this energy with clarity and intent.
I am holds the consciousness of being here and there simultaneously.
I am holds the consciousness of being here and there simultaneously.
Wisdom and love unfold.
Wisdom and love unfold.
I am in full awareness of the increase of vibration.
I am in full awareness of the increase in vibration.
To fully emerge as an eternal Christed being.
To fully emerge as an eternal Christed being.
Eternally I remain free.
Eternally I remain free.
Al-Kabir. Al-Kabir. El-Rusala. Om Dat Sat Om. Om Dat Sat Om. Imagine this world where personal sovereignty is universal, where every heart beats with Christ consciousness, uniting us in love. Communities thrive on holistic health, clean food, natural medicine, spiritual wellness. We collaborate across cultures, guided by divine values, not fear. We embrace the cosmic laws in a manner that is contributive to the benefit of all. If it is good for all, it is good. Decentralized systems empower us, not institutions. Ideas and stories are the only things that have ever changed this world. This next story is our chance to reframe reality, not in years, but in an instant. In a world where we live in harmony, like a body restored to health, this isn't a fantasy, it's our future, if we dare to tell the story. Okay, what does this sign say? What does this sign say? Neil, read it.
The greater the trauma, the greater the catharsis.
Okay, I want you to think on this for a minute, okay? I'll give you a minute or two to noodle on it, because this is important. It's really important, okay?
Isn't it kind of like the law of karma?
In a sense, yeah. We speak of post-traumatic growth. We speak of your agreement to pitch up as a light bearer to help in the emancipation of mankind. We speak of this as a springboard to launch us into a whole new vibratory realm. The earth is terribly traumatized. So are all of you. Even that hangnail when you were 7 years old, that's still a bitch. Know your divinity. Know your place. Acknowledge. Accept. Accept your divinity. To do otherwise is delusional. Each and every one of you is a sovereign, divine, eternal being. You're playing in a time on this magnificent planet, this school that is revered in this neighborhood of the solar cosmos, right? This is a very magic place to be in. You chose to be here. How dare you not take advantage of this brilliant opportunity to emancipate mankind, to extricate yourself from the wheel of karma. That's always a good thing. And to remember your divinity. To remember your divinity. It's not going to be a political pamphlet that ignites this spark. It's going to appear as a revelation. This is the time of revelation, okay? Forget the myth of gun-toting heroes, okay? Words, ideas, stories. The next story is ours to tell. A story of sovereignty, unity, divine harmony, the golden thread of truth that's run amongst all the stories. With a story, they could control the world, but with the right story, you can free the world. Be that storyteller. Let's write this next chapter. Take responsibility for the God-given gifts you've been anointed with, and let's carry on. There are things to be done by you, done better by you than anybody else in the world. This is the truth. And it may be a task, but it's a worthwhile task. Your life has purpose. It's why we gather, why we remember, why we choose to remember why we came. And there's a wave, and it's called the wave of revelation. And yeah, on that side, there's a whole bunch of goop. What was the word? Goop and gunk? What was the other word?
Gook and gack.
Gook and gack. But on this side, there's the light bearers. There's the light. There's emancipation. There's revelation. So whenever you want to carry on with the dialogue about how bad Bob or Gladys or Carney or Trudeau or Trump or Biden are, remember that on the other side of that spectrum is a light bearer an ascended master, part of our cosmic brethren, who are absolutely positively engaged in your evolution. Why? Because as you evolve, everybody evolves. Why would they not be? When you start to realize that we're all one in this little shit pickle, sorry, that's a very, very ancient Sanskrit term. There's another one called fustercluck. That's another Sanskrit term. But when you realize that we're all one, why would we not want everybody to prosper and wake up? And Elaine, I know that we want those around us to wake up. And when you intuitively know it's time to pass along the message, do. But when you intuitively know it's time to keep quiet, away you go. As we saw in speech, didn't we, with DK? Don't speak when you know it's not going to make a difference, but speak when it is. Right? And you will know. You will absolutely know.
And if you don't, you can always ask.
And if you don't, you can always ask. And I will pass along this little observation that I think might be germane at this time. Imagine, if you will, you've spent many, many lifetimes being bamboozled and consequently being controlled in your life. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And in between each lifetime, we all get together and we say, so how'd that go? And you get your checklist out and you go, well, the last 6 lifetimes I was bamboozled here and bamboozled here and bamboozled here. I need to get into a place where I'm no longer bamboozled. What if there's a whole bunch of people on the planet right now who are literally waiting to expire so that they can figure out they've been bamboozled for the last time? You know, I did that what's it thing that the society said or the powers that be said, and now I'm dead, but I'm on the other side and I figured it out. What can I do to help? What happens if we have a litany? What if we have an entire army of people who have expired during this time who have said, I got the picture this time. What can I do to help? What if? The other thing I want to pass along before we leave is this. I do think at this time that the light bearers are going through their own version of death while they're still alive in their body. This is unprecedented. We normally have to die to go through this shit, but we're going through it right now. Does that sort of sound like we're kind of doing that? Okay. I want you to think on that, okay? Because this is unprecedented. This has not happened in my observation or in my education, but God knows. I know how little I know.
But you have probably an unprecedented amount of literature out there, like Journey of Souls. So we essentially can have the experience of the afterlife in one.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a really important thing to do. Now we're going to do our 9 o'clock because we're 3 minutes late, right? You ready? We should give you a card, shouldn't we? Let's give Lizzie a cue card. Now you have to stand up and spin around 3 times and hold your left eye closed and your left nostril, and thank you for having a sense of humor. Yeah, show it to her.
Can I just have one of these cards? I've never received like.
You're absolutely right.
Mine's pretty beat up.
Who doesn't have one of these on them? Here you go. There's 2. Okay, you ready? Mighty I am presence, which I am. Now take full charge and full mastery of this body. See that I go and come from it consciously and at will. Never again can it bind me or limit my freedom. Oh, guys. We cannot thank you enough for your presence, your attention, and your attendance. There are things happening right now, big time. I don't know how many of you are being woken up in the middle of the night, but my goodness, ain't it a pain in the neck for the ego. Remember that this isn't about the ego. Anna?
Sorry, this is off topic a little, but the fluoride thing.
The toroid?
Fluoride.
Fluoride, yes. What about the fluoride?
Any
Pluggy.
insight? Whether it's actually
We
gonna
need
go?
people to sign, right? We need more signatures, is everybody
Clogs up
signed?
our pineal gland, doesn't it?
Well, fluoride is a toxin, and it's well known it's to be a toxin. One of the things that them trying to push fluoride in also gives you insight into the corruption in the system. If you feel called to sign the petition, go ahead. Right? If you also feel if you feel called to, like, we're going through a sovereignty push right now. We may have, and I don't know, we may have a sovereign Alberta coming. I don't know. We may have a sovereign other provinces. I don't know. It is all unfolding, but I do know this. I think it really is a time when we need to stand up and be seen and be heard.
I belong to the anti-fluoride group in Calgary, and we've been going down to City Hall and presenting all these things. And they will put fluoride in August apparently, or at the end of June or August. What I'm doing is getting a really good water filter.
Right.
And if anyone wants to know about the petition, just give me your email and I can send it along to you.
Okay. Absolutely.
But does there appear to be any hope that they might turn this
Reconsider?
around? Yeah. Is it-
Dr. Robert Dixon, who heads this up, had to appear before the Alberta Health Council in, first of all, because he gave ivermectin for, and
Right.
they found him guilty and charged him $6,000, and he has to go through a re-education
Right.
thing like during meetings.
So the website is Safe Water Calgary.
Yes, that's.
Safe Water Calgary? Okay.
Yeah, just go to
Okay.
Safe Water Calgary.
So are you still plugged into Telegram?
Yes.
Okay. So reach out to Elaine on Telegram and send her your email or interact. We'd happily do that.
Safe Water Calgary.
Safe Water Calgary, yeah.
Tonight and the petition is on there.
Absolutely.
It's got all
Okay.
kinds of really good stuff.
Yeah. So part of this next chapter is it's self-empowerment, but it's big self-empowerment, right? Okay. Quick review of what's going on. Floor is open. What happened tonight? What did you learn tonight? Where are we going with this? Okay, Lizzie, you stand up and tell it all.
I'm not gonna stand up.
We're just kidding you, sweetie, but you're more than welcome to take the floor.
Well,
What would you like?
Yeah, no, I feel this whole information is amazing because I'm right now in a project creating a video, and it's all related to the new earth and peace around, and like where we recorded, Ellen and I, this song "Peace Be With Me," and it's on Spotify, so that inspired me to create this video, and then it's turning into something like bigger than I was like expecting. And
Lovely.
And then like it's all about like, you know, Christ. When you mentioned Christ consciousness, I was like, I had to breathe deep because it was like, oh my gosh, more confirmation that what I'm doing is like, because sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I should stop, or like this isn't, maybe I'm just going crazy or whatever. But,
Yeah.
But this is more confirmation that I should just like continue, even though like I think about it all the time, every time, and I just want to go and do it. But like I have the day-to-day things, and like I work in insurance and so it's like between worlds that I'm dealing with.
Well, we have a saying here, and it's called, it isn't that we should be in this world less, but in both worlds more. And part of one of the things, I'll give you a great story about Lahiri Mahasaya, whose guru was Babaji. And Lahiri Mahasaya was married, and he had 1 or 2 or 3 kids. I don't know how many kids he had. But he was married to his wife, and his wife had no idea how advanced he was. And so he was sitting in his own version of his lamasery, and he was sitting in lotus position, and he was levitating on the roof, on the ceiling. He was sitting in this blissful place. And his wife comes in and goes, Lahiri, take out the garbage. And she had no idea. None. She prostrated herself at his feet and went, I'm sorry, Guruji, please bring, please accept me into she had no idea. And I think one of the things that is going to come to light is that the whole law of hierarchy is going to come into play in this next chapter. Your vibratory realm will dictate how you reside in this next chapter. So when you were a very advanced teacher with a high vibratory realm, you will man the teaching scenario, right? When you are very adept at doing the widgets or the what's it, your vibratory realm will dictate how you play that. Not how much money you have, not who promotes you, but your vibratory realm, okay? And that's the law of hierarchy. And as we learned in mystery school, this is how things are going to happen. You are being ruled, you should be the ruler. No, these people who rule you should not be ruling, and they won't for long. It will change. However, imagine, if you will, the enormity of this time of change.
A couple of things struck me tonight. One is it possible, and pretty sure it is, that what we're seeing going on in the politics and the wars and everything in the world is a distraction, an entertainment, a soap opera.
Psyop.
Yes, and I observe getting into a conversation with someone who thinks differently than I do, which is a lot of people, as you all know, that they don't hear you. It's just an emotional outburst, and they all mention the same incidences that they've heard. Like, how can they split up these children and families in the States and send the people back to wherever? Yeah. And I recognize they've been propagandized and they're hypnotized.
They are in fact hypnotized. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so to get along with that, what you said tonight, I really like it's a role we play, it's a game.
Yes.
And so to live in all this and to see it, I'm never gonna change their minds. And so it's a game, and I like that.
And I couldn't agree more, and it's great. Here's a great phrase to use when people are telling, when they go into that zone and they say, and they're splitting up families. And here's a great phrase that I tend to use, and it's this: I know something for absolute certain, and it's this: nothing is ever what it seems. Full stop. Nothing is ever what it seems. And one of the things that, like, the first instance of a spiritual nature is my mother dying in my arms and saying, I'm not dead. Like, what? Right? And then just in a pragmatic play, I was in a football game in the city final in double overtime, and I read about it in the newspaper the next day, and I looked at my dad and I said, where was he? Like, was he in Lethbridge? Like, we did this in Calgary. Like, how? And he goes, yeah, like, pay attention to that. People have no idea. And I think when you find that out early, you start to recognize that, like, we talked about this whole concept of stories. You know, what's going to come out is our history has been completely compromised. And you know, what's also going to come out is our elder brothers who've been intriguingly engaged in helping, but won't help because of the law of free will unless we ask. But there's a keen movement there where a whole bunch of information is going to come out, and we're going to start to rethink our history, rethink our reality, and also physics, quantum physics, mathematics. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's been completely precluded from us, right? And so we've got some interesting stuff on the go. And I think I want all of you to spend, even if it is 3 minutes, with Eric tonight, because I think he has a certain affluence of compatibility with this next stage of the sacred nature of our journey. Excuse me.
I think one way of conceptualizing that, there's a Carl Jung quote that goes, people don't have ideas, ideas have people. That like abstract reality manifests into physical reality, and so these intelligences that we're interacting with are just manifested abstract ideas. And so that's part of this idea of the garden, and I've had a dream about this too, that this garden that we're planting, like we're all our own versions of the tree of life. We're all our own instances of that, and that's what it means to be made in the image of God. That reality is constructed mathematically or geometrically, and that the tree of life shows us how energy flows from abstract into concrete. And so the only thing that I'm really interested in is like helping other people figure out how to optimize their own like local tree of life structure so that they can get the lightning bolt going. Because the lightning bolt is the most efficient way to have your higher intelligence manifest into your vessel.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Let's get building.
Yes, exactly. Now we're going to start Joy class. We're doing a Friday live YouTube. We're going to start Joy, sort of an abridged Joy class in June. For those of you who are interested, I will send out the Joy invitation. Sherry's in, Safrina's in, Kathy's in, Eric's in, obviously, and it'll be a completely reworked gig, and it's a 7-class event, not 12, and it also begats some other things that we're going to be doing in June as well for many of the graduates. We're going to be working on white magic, a meditation workshop, and the Rainbow Bridge as well. Okay, so floor is still open. Any other questions? Observation?
I wanted to.
Okay, Sherry.
I've actually been having prophetic dreams for the last 2 weeks. I've been seeing a lot of the ocean. I don't know what it is about the ocean, but it's been engulfing what I'm seeing. Also, I'm seeing transformation in not just humans, but also everything on the planet. And so it's been really, for the last 2 weeks, it's been very heavy on me. And it's been very, I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm seeing a lot of stuff as well, not just that, but also in just because I live out in the country, and so I'm seeing a lot of animals resonating with me when I walk, because I walk every day, as well as meditation. But my meditations have been really strong, and on top of that, the humming I'm feeling is very, very immense. It's I guess it's the Merkaba, because I do the Merkaba every day, but it's very, very strong. But I'm seeing a lot of stuff in my dreams. I'm seeing stuff in the sky. I'm seeing light codes in my dreams that go across the sky. Just a lot of crazy stuff.
Sherry, I think this is a conversation that maybe you and I should have on our own in Healing Clinic. But here's what I'd like you to do right now, if you could. I want you to push your chair back, and I want you to stand up, and I want you to imagine that you have water all over your body, but it's a bit sticky, this water, and you have to shake it out, okay? So stand up, use some somatic stuff, and shake off this stuff off of your body, okay? Shake it out, like shake hard. You're trying to get all of this stuff, right? There you go. Okay, that stuff, somatic work like that, when you're feeling like that, just get up and shake it up. Okay, well done, Sherry. So why don't let's caucus in the morning, and we'll see if we can make an appointment to have a bit of time together, okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, gang, any others?
I'm just in this place and what I'm hearing going on tonight, this sort of idea of what's around the next corner, like the closer I feel like I'm done, I cannot take another moment of this.
Yeah.
The more I feel that way, at the same time, there's this, any minute now, it's all gonna just, it's gonna be a whole new reality for me. Transformation happens like that. Like the more dying I feel.
Well, so like I said,
closer
right,
to life
I think we're going, like, one of the things that I've been getting a lot of late is profoundly dark angst, death throes. I've been getting a lot of that lately. And believe me, it's not just me. Okay, I'm receiving a lot of that from the gang, right? So
Why?
we're going through death throes right now, and all of what little influence I have in the world, many of the individuals that I am connected with, I have to experience some of that through me, right? Not something I chose to do, right? Yeah.
It is true. I think that I'll speak for myself, I'm just stubborn. Like this idea of change, or this idea of being a different version of who I am, or even embracing, like positivity or just anything kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just am like, no, I want to stay how I always was. And then eventually, like you're saying, Trevor, you turn around the corner and you just can't anymore.
Yeah.
So this stubbornness throws you into this death pose, this death throw, and you just are forced to not do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly one of the things that happens in death, in the throes of death, in the bardo, we call this, DK calls it the bardo. And certainly one of the things that Dieter has been working on in his teachings is, imagine you get in an elevator and you start to go up the elevator, and the elevator opens up and you go, wow, this looks cool. Don't get off until you get to the top. Okay, there's various levels of death, okay? And one of the things that happens is you've got to realize you aspire to the top, okay? And also, the gates of heaven must be stormed. You actually have to stand there, okay? And this is part of preparing you for the initiation. And the great initiator is this far away right now, okay? Okay? This is all.
What do you mean by the great initiator?
You are initiated by a master. Okay? The third initiation is performed by.
Are you referring to a single master or a master per person? Or both?
No, not a master per person. No.
Referring about the creator or God?
The creator is a pretty big concept. Suffice it to say that there is a master of ascension, the Lord of Ascension, and he is engaged in this work with each and every one of you who was ready to participate and partake. And he knows, yeah.
So how does one get to undergo the initiation?
It's www.iwannabeinitiated.com 1-800-beam me up Scotty.
Sign the petition.
Sign the petition. So the question was, how do we become initiated?
Who decides?
Exactly. Who decides?
Are we chosen or do we choose?
What's that slide say?
God doesn't qualify the called, he calls the... No, the other way. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Right. Okay. So in reading the Yoga Sutras the other day, one of the things that, and I'll make this a story, okay? There was a Buddhist monk, and he had a cello with him, and the cellist said, when am I gonna send? When am I gonna send? When am I gonna send? He was tugging on his toga or whatever, and when am I gonna send? You leaving?
I need to make sure she can get out.
Oh, I see. Okay, got you. And the master brought him to the little pond in the thing, and he grabbed him by his tunic, and grabbed him and forced him under the water, and he started gasping and he picked him up and he looked at him and he dunked him in the water again, and picked him. I did this 2 or 3 times, and the guy like almost drowned, and then he gets up and he goes, "What were you thinking?" And he goes, "I was thinking, all I could think of was what I wanted to breathe. All I wanted was air. I wanted air with every iota of my being." And he says, as soon as you want God with every iota of your being, you'll be called, right? And I think there's all, and the paradox on that is, this isn't your choice, right? This isn't your choice. God calls.
When you're ready.
When you least expect it to. All of a sudden these things happen when you least expect it.
And maybe that's part of the meaning of Sherry's dream with the ocean, like the way that you're describing it now. One of the interesting ways of interpreting what air is that like if you stop breathing, it's not your heart that stops working, it's not your brain that stops working, you lose consciousness first. So when you're breathing air, you're literally breathing in consciousness. And so when you have when you're removed from consciousness, which is like being underwater, then there's nothing to experience anymore, and that leads to death over time. But air is literally consciousness, and that we're inhaling it and exhaling it every time. And there's something that I came across recently that most people breathe in and out, which is a dualized way of breathing. But there's a way of breathing where you're pulling the energy down and then you're pulling it up. So as you're breathing in,
we do that in yoga exercises all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also pore breathing too, which is you're bringing energy into every pore of your body as you're breathing in.
I have not gotten to that level yet.
And so there's a breathing technique that we were taught in Egypt many years ago about you breathe in every pore of your body and you breathe out every pore of your body, and you do it to the count of 100. It's hard to do. It takes a while to get to that count of 100, right? It takes it. It's a challenge. Okay, gang. Let's have a brief debrief with Eric. And if for those of you who live in the Northwest, if any of you want to give him a lift home, that would be greatly appreciated. But he's here for another 2 weeks now. And we'll send out a meeting for the live YouTube live for Friday night. It's for Joy, but it's a whole new slide deck, a whole new presentation, and there's some stuff going on which is delightful. Okay, gang. Sherry, God bless. Safrina, lovely to have you. Eric, thank you so much. Trevor, thank you so much. Neil, thank you. Stan, wonderful to see you. Erica, thank you as always. Alan, lovely to see you. Lizzie, wonderful to meet you. It's delightful that you're here. Vera, as always, thank you. Vera's been with me for years and years and years, haven't you? And Elaine's been with me for 12 years, 13 years. And God bless you for being so courageous to be in this shit show of the education system. Well, no, and Erica too, to be courageous in this place. And thank you for being a light bearer in this journey, right? We are blessed to have all of you. And thank you. Thank you so much. Sherry, thank you so much. And Anna, thank you so much. Thank you very much for your attention and your attendance. And Alexandra, that's right. And Kathy, yeah. Kathy sort of bid me goodbye the other day. Kathy and I have been doing work, believe it or not, for 43 years now, yeah. For 43 years. I've been doing work with her for 43 years. Yeah, so isn't that interesting, eh? Okay, gang. Lots of love.
Out, y'all.